So this week, Lexus was kind enough to send me one of their most luxurious and off-road capable SUVs within their lineup, the 2025 Lexus LX 700h Overtrail. Now for 2025, the LX got this brand new hybrid powertrain underneath the hood, as well as the Overtrail trim level, which comes standard with front, rear, and center locking differentials, 33-inch all-terrain tires, an adaptive and height adjustable hydraulic suspension, and a whole bunch more. This vehicle is truly very capable for the full-size SUV segment, and it'd be hard-pressed to get this thing stuck unless you're being really stupid with this particular vehicle. However, it comes with a hefty price tag and does sacrifice a little bit of the luxurious features and amenities and just driving dynamics that one might expect when paying the six-figure price tag that this SUV starts and comes in at. Now, with that being said, over the last week, I have been reasonably impressed with a lot of the aspects and attributes, including that hybrid powertrain underneath the hood. However, not everything is going to be perfect. So in today's video, we're going to run through both my likes and dislikes here with the 2025 Lexus LX 700h and see if this SUV is the right fit for you. So as usual, starting out my first like, that is going to be the hybrid powertrain underneath the hood. Now this is a very familiar Toyota Lexus powertrain. It is the 3.4 liter twin turbo V6 paired to a 10-speed automatic transmission and of course the electric motors and high voltage battery pack, producing 457 horsepower and 583 pound-feet of torque through the standard four-wheel drive 2-speed transfer case. And one might think because this is a hybrid, it gets excellent fuel economy, and no, that's not the case. Now this is definitely geared towards the performance side of things, which I've mentioned some of the other Toyota hybrid vehicles that I've tested, and it definitely does the performance quite well. This isn't maybe the class leader in terms of straight line speed or straight line acceleration. However, it does provide effortless and smooth acceleration in basically every situation that you might find yourself in. Now, when it comes to fuel economy, it is rated at 19 city, 22 out on the highway, and I was able to actually beat that 22 mpg figure on my 150-mile round trip loop out at 76 to 77 miles an hour, which ultimately is one other reason why this powertrain impressed me. However, when it comes to city fuel economy, I was well under the 19 mpg, averaging somewhere between 14 and 15 mpg with a lighter foot, and you'll get much less than that if you do have a heavy foot with this vehicle. But generally speaking, it's going to be very smooth and has all the power on tap that you would want to expect, whether or not you're just driving around town, cruising down the interstate, or towing up to 8,000 pounds with this particular vehicle. Now moving on to my second like, that is actually going to be the suspension system that underpins this vehicle. Now immediately when the vehicle was dropped off, I knew it had height adjustable suspension via the buttons on the center console, but I originally thought it was air suspension. That is actually not the case. This is a hydraulically adjustable height suspension with adaptive dampers paired to that. So this vehicle actually uses hydraulics to change the overall ride height, and it does so extremely quickly. So that is my first like with the suspension. The ride height not only has great range of motion from the entry exit, the normal height 1 and height 2 for the off-road modes, but it does so very quickly, and does so basically before you're already exiting the vehicle, and just at a press of the button, basically in a few seconds, you can raise or lower the height. Now, in addition to this, it has the adaptive damper system, which changes with the drive modes. So it has a very soft, very plush comfort drive mode. The normal drive mode is ultimately what I preferred driving around town and even out on the interstate in some cases, but it can get more firm with the Sport and Sport Plus drive modes. So there's ultimately a good range of customization and drivability with the different ride heights you can change, as well as the different drive modes that do firm or soften up the suspension. Now moving on to my third like, that is going to be all of the off-road hardware that this vehicle is equipped with. Now I have my list here so I don't forget anything, but it has front, rear, and center locking differentials, the 2-speed four-wheel drive transfer case, crawl control, multi-terrain select, the hydraulic adaptive suspension, which allows for up to 27 inches of water fording, 12 inches of ground clearance. You have the skid plates below. You have the 33-inch all-terrain tires with a full-size spare mounted underneath the vehicle, and the list goes on. Of course, it has the 360 camera system with the see-through vision, so it'll essentially paste the digital copy underneath the vehicle so you can see what you're driving over. But this SUV is truly extremely capable and one of the most capable full-size SUVs out there. And I think what helps set it apart from some of that of the competition that might cost a little bit less or, much more than this vehicle, as this one stickers right over $116,000. as I mentioned. But overall, I think they've done a great job packaging this vehicle, adding some of the luxurious creature comforts that one would expect, because as we know, this is essentially a rebadged Land Cruiser 300 series, which unfortunately we do not get here in the United States under the Toyota brand, but we do get a slightly watered down or different version of the Land Cruiser, which I have tested and reviewed here on the channel. Still very capable, but I think a lot of the enthusiast market is definitely geared towards this one right here. Now moving on to my fourth like, this is going to be a pretty repetitive one if you see some of my Toyota Lexus hybrid videos out, but it's the onboard power via the 20 amp, 120 volt, 2400 watt wall outlet here in the cargo area. Now 2400 watts is actually more than some fully electric vehicles out there. You can power a circular saw, which I demonstrated with the Land Cruiser. You can power some things inside your home in the case of a power outage. You can go tailgating, camping with this. The list really goes on, and 2400 watts is actually a usable amount of power whenever you need it or in case of emergency, and I just like the fact that it has it on board with this hybrid powertrain. Now, since we're already at the back of the vehicle, my next like is going to be in regards to the third row seat delete that you can get from the factory on this LX 700H Overtrail. Now, as you can see, it's a pretty expansive amount of cargo space, even with the second row seats still up, but I believe it actually lowers the load floor a little bit, removing those third row seats. The high voltage battery pack lies under here somewhere as well. You have a little bit of additional storage actually behind the second row seats and a little bit of a cover right there. And just generally speaking, I think not having the third row makes this slightly more usable on a daily basis, or if you want to go camping and overlanding, you can simply fold flat the second row seats and basically sprawl out with all of the space that this vehicle has on the inside. Now, you still have the provisions for the cup holders, you even have the AC vents still located in the headliner, but generally speaking, I think removing the third row for $1,750 savings in terms of the MSRP makes it just generally a little bit more appealing to me, and I think that's the way that I would option one of these if I were to purchase one myself. Now moving on to my next like, that is going to be the optional Mark Levinson Reference Premium Surround Sound Audio System with 25 speakers and roughly 2400 watts of total output. Now what's cool about this audio system, it adds the height channels or the 3D surround sound EQ settings via the infotainment system. And although it's not the best sounding audio system I've encountered out there, I think it does match the price point of this vehicle quite well. And the 3D surround, although not Dolby Atmos supporting, does add a different dimension or element if you're an audiophile out there, just value music. It's very powerful, packs a punch. It's very integrated well. It doesn't sound like the height channels are overpowering the listeners in the seats in which they're sitting in, like the Ford Expedition I had a few weeks ago. So overall, if you like premium audio system, you like the best quality audio that's available in a specific model, then this Mark Levinson Reference Audio is probably going to be one box you want to select. Now, in addition to this, my next like is going to be the seat comfort with the massaging functionality. Now, this vehicle comes with the heated and ventilated first and second row seats, and the first row seats are going to have massagers built in for both the back cushion and the bottom cushion. Now, this semi-aniline leather is actually pretty darn soft, and generally speaking, I don't have an issue with most Toyota Lexus seats out there, and I think the LX is going to be the same case. They work quite well, they're very comfortable, they have most of the power adjustments, including four-way power lumbar that you would expect, a leg extension. The only adjustment that I wish went a little bit further is the tilt for the bottom cushion in terms of thigh support. I wish that went up a little bit further, but the actual massagers in the seat are pretty darn aggressive in their intensity, assuming you have it set to that on the infotainment. But my only complaint in terms of the seat comfort and the seat performance, I guess, is how you access the massagers on the screen. It's buried in like 2 or 3 different menu presses, and overall, I just wish it was a physical button or integrated on the secondary display in the center console to make turning on and off that feature much easier. But what is very easy to access and use on a daily basis is the automatic seat climate. So this vehicle has both first and second row heated and ventilated seats. All 4 seating positions are automatic climate. So if you want to enable that function, you can do so. And it's easy as basically making sure it's set on the auto setting right there. You can see the ventilated seats on level 2. Heated steering wheel also has automatic. That's turned off, of course, due to outside ambient conditions. And I never had a single issue with the automatic seat climate here in the LX. and it just did exactly what it should. Actually, they had a few mornings that were in the 40s to start out, and it turned on the heated seat for a few minutes to warm up the seat, get it up to the optimal seating comfort, and then later in the day when it's up in the 70s or 80s, it'll turn on the ventilated seat and almost always leaves it on level 1, which is what I prefer when living with this vehicle daily. So the automatic seat climate is a feature that I want in my next personal vehicle, and this one works exactly how I'd expect it, unlike some other vehicles, including the Ford Expedition I had a couple weeks ago, where the automatic seat climate would almost never turn on the ventilated seat automatically. I would have to override it and do it manually. So that kind of, dilutes the point of having automatic seat climate if it just doesn't function well. Now moving on to my next like, that is gonna be the center console cool box for a few different reasons. Now, number one, obviously this cool box is intended to keep beverages or food items chilled to a optimal temperature. If you're going on a long road trip, you're going out adventuring, camping, anything like that, the cool box will definitely come in handy. Now, via my Pixel 9 thermometer, it gets down to below 50 degrees, after running for a period of just over an hour or so. It gets pretty darn chilly in there. Obviously, it's not recommended to keep meat or fish inside, as there's a little warning label to do so. It doesn't get down quite that cold, but on a day like this where my camera is overheating because it's sunny, it's like over 80 degrees outside, it's just hot, I can put my camera in there for just a couple minutes, cool it back down, and continue filming for you guys. So it's a little bit of a dual purpose feature. The Land Cruiser also has this here in the United States, and I loved it, and I love it here in the LX. Wish it was just a tad bigger so you could put like cases of stuff in there, but nonetheless, it works well and helps to cool down the camera so I can continue making these videos for you guys. And I think my final like here with the LX700H is going to be a two-part one. It's going to be both the interior layout design and use of physical buttons and controls, and also going to be the lighting of this vehicle. So number one, obviously I've already showcased, several bits of the interior, but when you look around the interior, you feel, touch everything. Almost every single feature is controlled with a physical button, outside of things like the massaging seats, unfortunately, which is so refreshing to feel and be behind the wheel of a vehicle like this. It doesn't even have the touch type steering wheel controls like a lot of other Lexus SUV has, which interact with the heads-up display. It's just physical. And coming out of the Expedition with those frustrating steering wheel buttons and controls, this one is so much better than that one. And in addition to this, the lighting, both ambient LED interior and exterior functional lighting for the headlights and high beam assist, all of that is very good also. I drove this vehicle at night, had no issues with the low beam or the high beam assist. And just in terms of aesthetics, function, and all of that, the LED lighting is fantastic. So with all those likes out of the way, now let's get to the handful of things that I didn't love so much about it after spending some time with the LX, and see ultimately what they could do a little bit better. And I think before we get into the dedicated list of dislikes, I do want to mention one that's kind of both a like and a dislike that I've experienced firsthand with this vehicle, and that's going to be in regards to real-world fuel economy. Now, I took this vehicle on a 150-mile round-trip road trip on the interstate at 76, 77 miles an hour, filled it up before I left, filled it up immediately when I got back, and calculated the fuel economy, and I actually got 22.8 mpg out on the interstate, which is mind-blowing. That is fantastic mpg for a vehicle of this size at those speeds. Now, on the flip side of this, according to the information on the dashboard, around town and city driving, I was struggling to get 15 mpg, which is much worse than the 19 mpg in which this vehicle is rated at. So if you have a heavy foot, you're going to see 12 to 13 mpg pretty regularly with this vehicle. But if you're cruising out on the interstate or at higher speeds, you're going to see 20 plus mpg without any issues, which is pretty darn cool. So I just want to mention that because it's both a positive and a negative attribute with this hybrid powertrain. But now let's go ahead and get into the full list of dislikes. So starting out with my first dislike on the interior, it's going to be in regards to some of the physical buttons and switchgear that I did just praise or mention, but this one's a little bit interesting because it's more so the layout or how it was implemented, but it's going to be how hard it is to access the window and mirror controls behind this rather large door grab handle. So essentially, if you're just sitting here in your driving position, which I am right now, and you want to go lower the driver's side window or the rear windows, you have to kind of reach around this grab handle and, kink your wrist a little bit just to gain access to the window controls because this grab handle is so protruding and in the way. Now, I like how it's a firm grab handle. Obviously, if you're taking this vehicle off-road, you need firm grab points to actually hold on to. but it just makes accessing some of these controls a little bit more difficult than it, honestly should be. Now, luckily you do have automatic power folding mirrors, so you can just leave those in the auto setting. They'll lock or fold in with the lock of the vehicle, but it's more so the window controls that are hard to access because you're using those, maybe on a daily basis, and this grab handle definitely sits a little bit in the way. Now, moving on to my second dislike, that is going to be how slow some of the screens and technology are here on the interior. Now, you do have the more up-to-date 12.3-inch infotainment up here with the connected services, but below that you have a roughly 7-inch color touchscreen display around the climate controls and some of the other physical displays, and then you have the 12.3-inch fully digital instrument cluster, which is found in basically all Toyota Lexus products at this point, outside of maybe some of the base models. Now, my issue with these screens is not how they function or the different configurations that one can do, because I do like that quite a bit, but it's how slow to react some of these menus do take to change. If you're spending $116,000 on this SUV and cycling between some of these, you can see the stutter, the frame rate lagginess of it. It's just a little bit unacceptable in my opinion. Now, same with this small 7-inch display in the bottom. This one displays kind of your current transfer case or four-wheel drive setting, drive mode. You have a G-force meter, brake accelerator, and then you have your temperatures on here and whatnot. But cycling through some of these other pages, you can turn the screen off entirely. You have different color settings for the display to tweak it how you wish. You have sensitivity, it looks like. And then you have some of the other seat climate controls that are displayed up here. But you can see it's a relatively slow screen that takes a little bit of time with the transitions that they've given it. And overall, I just wish these were a little bit more responsive, maybe a little bit more up to date, kind of like this infotainment system up here to match, everything else without the interior. And I think my next dislike is going to be, again, a little clunky one, but it's going to be how hard it is to access the massaging seat controls. So to do this, you essentially have to go into the Lexus UI. You have to go into this little vehicle icon down here. Then you find seat controls, and then the only thing under seat controls is massage. Click on massage, and then you click on the actual seat that you want to control. Brings up the power driver or passenger seat. You can power on the massage, change the intensity, change the different massage profile that you have. But you can see just how clunky it is. I mean, that's like 4 or 5 button presses just to turn on the massage. And yeah, that is just a really big miss given the additional features and luxurious attributes about this vehicle. I think finally coming to my last big dislike with this vehicle, and it's a really minor one, but I think it's worth mentioning given the price point and luxurious characteristics that this vehicle should have. It's going to be the tire noise that comes into the cabin with these all-terrain tires, specifically on the Overtrail trim level. Now, as I mentioned in my dedicated driving review, I think Lexus did a fantastic job minimizing the amount of tread noise or tire noise that comes into the cabin, but you still do hear it, whether you be driving at 40 miles an hour with the windows down, windows up, or at 75 miles an hour with the windows up out on the interstate. It's just something you will hear, and it's kind of consistently or constantly there in the background. Trust me, I've been in vehicles that are much worse than this, that have much louder of tires and tread noises coming in the cabin. This is nothing compared to those vehicles. However, if somebody's wanting to drive this on a daily basis, completely isolate themselves from the outside world as much as possible, the tires are still going to make their way into the cabin. And yes, the audio system can overcome a lot of that noise without issues, but again, it's something that I think is worth mentioning because it is something that is consistently there and something you might live with on a daily basis. But outside of that, those are going to be my biggest dislikes in regards to the 2025 Lexus LX 700H. If you guys enjoyed this video and or found it helpful, make sure to hit that like button below, subscribe if you haven't already. Let me know your thoughts and feedback down in the comment section below. If you agree, disagree, want to add any things, if you happen to own this version or generation of LX, definitely curious to hear that. Helps out anybody that might be interested in purchasing one of these vehicles for themselves. Overall, this vehicle has a lot of positive attributes, just a few negatives, and I think generally speaking, if you can get around some of the deficiencies in terms of what this vehicle sacrifices on-road for a lot of the off-road capability and feature set, it's something that is definitely worth looking into. But of course, you will be paying that premium price tag. and that's a little bit of a bummer. But like I said, let me know your thoughts and opinions down in the comment section below. I want to give you a huge thanks to Lexus for sending this vehicle out for me to test and review. One of the most expensive vehicles in terms of its MSRPs that I've ever tested, alongside their LC 500 convertible, which will be coming out very shortly in the next couple weeks. Very excited for that. So stick around for that content. Check out some other videos I have already posted here on the LX. And with all that being said, I hope to see you guys in the next one.